Nintendo, if you're watching this and you sue me, that means it's canon. Super Mario Odyssey is a game where you play as Mario, Nintendo's favorite white boy, but what if it wasn't? I mean, after all, the game is literally named after him, so could Odysseus survive Super Mario Odyssey? And more importantly, how would he do it? And if not, how far could he actually get? How many people would he kill? When will you let me see the kids, Sharon? I said I'm sorry. These are all important questions, and except for one of them, they're questions I know the answer to. I'm Nick Rose, and today we're going to be going through the entirety of Super Mario Odyssey as we solve if Odysseus could survive. But no good challenge comes without rules, so let's set some for the journey ahead before we embark. Rule number 1, Odysseus is a human guy. He can't double jump, he can't ground pound, and he needs food and water to survive. He's just a man. Rule number 2 is that he can use items, as evidenced by any character's ability to use them in Mario Party. Rule number 3, Odysseus is guided by Athena, which will help give him ideas, solutions, or direct magical intervention no more than 3 times. These are his 3 Athena lifelines for the run. Rule number 4 is that the ocean fucking hates him, so he cannot swim in any water deeper than 100 feet, and any ship he gets on will inevitably be destroyed at some point in time. And last but not least, we have rule number 5. If a situation can get worse, it will get worse, and it will probably be his fault. I'm just going to assume that if you clicked on this video, you probably know of the Odyssey and who Odysseus is, but before we get into the story, let's just run through a super fast recap to understand who our protagonist is. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, which are both stories originally by a man named Homer from ancient Greece, Odysseus is the king of an island off the coast of Greece named Ithaca, and is a clever warrior who's the great-grandson of Hermes, the messenger god, and god of trickery and all the other stuff. He fights in the Trojan War for like 10 years and then kills a baby after doing the whole Trojan horse thing, which was his idea, by the way. But little problem, he has been away from his wife Penelope and his kid son Telemachus for 10 whole years, and he has to lead 600 men across the Mediterranean. He constantly runs into trouble and has to think of clever solutions to survive. I will now describe everything he had to overcome. So the first island that So in terms of personality, Odysseus is pretty clever, super athletic, arrogant, super prideful, a bit of a trickster, and he's pretty funny. Unlike my mother, who isn't very good at jokes, as evidenced by the fact it took her 9 months to form just one. Most of all, though, Odysseus is vengeful and violent by the end of the story, after spending 10 years being tortured by the gods for his hubris, and also his crew's stupid, but at least comedically stupid crew. Everybody give me a round of applause for his stupid crew, please. Round of applause, thank you. That wasn't my hands, by the way. All right, that's the story, so let's get into the game. If you don't know Super Mario Odyssey's story or mechanics, you'll figure it out as you go. Trust me, it's not that hard. You're smart. We'll figure it out. And since you're so smart, please like the video if you're enjoying it, and hype the video with your hype points. It really helps small creators like me, so thank you. Oh, and also shout out the incredible animator Gigi. I'm gonna be using their art of Odysseus constantly in this video, so check them out. They're incredible. Without any further ado, we start in the skies over Penelope's castle.
Damn.
Immediately out the gate, Bowser, no, Antinouser hits Odysseus with his wedding hat so hard that it sends him flying at least 3 kilometers, where he lands on the ground having fallen from an altitude of, quote, the skies. Odysseus dies in the first 3 seconds, which is why we'll be using our first Athena lifeline out the gate. We flash back to a scene before the game even starts, where Odysseus is planning to confront Antinouser to save Penelope. Athena gives Odysseus an anti-hat potion that makes him immune to the effects of hats for a short time, but warns him of the consequences of such a potion used recklessly. And so, as Odysseus is hit by Antinouser's hat, it's destroyed, but Odysseus is still sent flying by the impact. As he sails off the edge of the ship, he tears off a piece of the sails from the ship, trying to get a grip, instead using it to slow his fall as he lands in the Cap Kingdom's soft sand with only minor injuries. This is where Cappy arrives. He finds Odysseus and tells him of what's befallen his kingdom. Cappy would normally say, "Haven't you noticed who's missing? Don't you notice Princess not around?" You see, the problem is that Antinouser had kidnapped Penelope, but he also kidnapped Cappy's sister Tiara. But fortunately for us, he offers to lend us his power to help us with our Super Odysseus Odyssey. Oh no! Athena gave Odysseus an anti-hat potion that still hasn't worn off, which means the moment Cappy lands on our head, he fucking dies. That's right, rule number 6. Every friend Odysseus makes on his journey will die. It is inevitable unless they're a god. Odysseus has to beat the rest of the game without Cappy. After fully taking Antinauser's size and being splattered in white, Odysseus has gained a first objective. Now completely on his own in the Cap Kingdom, Odysseus walks over to the lever to lift the bridge, crossing the way to Top Hat Tower. Inside the tower, Mario would normally need to use Cappy to possess a frog and puppeteer it to jump on top of this tower. However, there are other ways. The walls of this tower grow grass on them and are separated by shallow water. And notice what's behind this frog? Can you point out what's behind the frog? No. No. Yes! There are metal railings surrounding the edges of each roof. Using the large floating coins found throughout the area as blunt instruments, Odysseus will break apart the top railings at these super thin weak points between the vertical rails. By slowly bashing the corners of these broken rails into points, he can make makeshift ice picks, and with these, he'd be able to easily climb the cold stony earthen walls. You can even see divots in the walls that could be used as handholds, so between his athleticism and the makeshift picks, this should prove easy for him. Instead of using Cappy to possess the cute little frogs, Odysseus will simply kill them for food to take on the journey. At the top of the tower, Odysseus finds a chest with a heart in it, which would normally give 3 lives, but since Mario starts with 3 lives, whereas Odysseus only has the 1, this will give him 1 extra life instead since he can use items. But as he reaches the rooftop, Odysseus is confronted with the Broodals, who tell Odysseus they'll kill him for their lord Antinauser, mocking him that he'll never see his wife again. But suddenly their leader Topper leaps from the ship and prepares for combat, their laughter echoing into the distance as the ship flies away, leaving Odysseus to his fate. Now, normally Mario would throw Cappy to knock off Topper's hat and then jump on his head. Very whimsical. Instead of that, when presented with an opponent with no weapon or physical attacks, Odysseus will simply rush Topper and choke the light from his eyes to feel him die in his hands. After killing Topper is the real challenge, though. Upon his death, an electrical wire to the Cascade Kingdom appears. Now, normally you'd throw Cappy on it to travel along the current as electricity sparks out of the wire. This demonstrates that the wire is a live wire and would kill Odysseus if he touched it. However, Topper's body is just sitting there. Topper's wearing an old bespoke suit, and these suits often had rubber in the waistband of their pants. And also, from his hat and wrist bracelets, we see that he has leather strips in the outfit, using the rubber for insulation against the electricity, with leather and cloth on the interior for comfort and binding wraps. Odysseus will simply make makeshift shoes and walk across the wire all the way to the Cascade Kingdom like it's a tightrope. Now you may be saying, that's not physically fucking possible. It's like 2 to 5 miles away based on the distance to the horizon taken from the top of the tower. And this is where I respond, do you have any fucking clue who this guy is? Let's do a little power scaling. While Odysseus is mainly known for his cunning, he's also basically superhuman, but still within semi-reasonable margins. In the Cave of the Cyclops, Odysseus clung upside down from the belly of a sheep for several minutes. He survived the Cyclops, he survived Attack on Titan, aka the Lystragonian cannibal giants, and after years of not training and then starving for several weeks, Odysseus met a society of elite athletes known as the Phaeacians of Scheria. It's said that during a discus tournament there, Odysseus threw a discus further than any elite athlete of the Phaeacians could. In ancient Greece, the discus was made of stone, and it weighed on average 2.5 kilograms. The world record discus throw is 75.56 meters, and Odysseus threw it so far it, quote, stunned the crowd. The crowd of elite athletes. They were the ones shocked that a starving man did that. I'd estimate conservatively he threw it at least 10% further than they did, and that'd be a distance of 83.116 meters, or 272 feet. If that's what debuffed Odysseus could do, get used to the shit Odysseus in his prime can do. Now, back to the story, that's enough power scaling, I just wanted you to know who we're working with here. Now, unfortunately, Odysseus still can't break physics, and carrying these long metal railing pieces across the wire would be both unwieldy and dangerous since they conduct electricity, so he has to leave his makeshift picks behind. But that's all he has to leave behind. And with that, we end the tutorial of the game and the tutorial of the video. You know everything you need to know to survive, so I present to you Super Mario Odysseus. Odysseus's initial assessment of the Cascade Kingdom is good, as he hops off and slides down the power pole using his makeshift parachute as a pole climbing ramp. Traversal is easy at first in the Cascade Kingdom. The walls are rough and jutting rock, which would be easy to climb freehand. To get the first power moon, you have to control a chain chomp to break a rock pillar, but Odysseus is gonna have to put himself on the line for it. With his agility and knack for goading opponents, he baits the chain chomp into lunging at him as he dives out of the way into the water, much like how he hunted a boar as a child, which scarred his leg. With the rock broken, he's free to acquire the power moon and cross into the rest of the region. Normally, Cappy uses the power moons to activate things, but in this case, Odysseus will just have to do it himself since he's far more competent than Chud Mario. Up next, Odysseus finds a stone wall he could easily climb over, but many chain chomps block the way and would be easily able to pick him off the rocks like the heads of Scylla. Fortunately, there's a slumbering giant nearby, a massive T-Rex that's slumbering near the rock wall. Without Cappy, Odysseus can't control the T-Rex to destroy the chain chomps and break the walls. No, instead, Odysseus will do as he does best. Get creative. Odysseus will take down one of the wooden power poles with the electrical cables connected to them using nearby rocks from the river and the rock wall to make handheld Stone Age hand axes. From there, he just has to chip away and sharpen the pole into a sharp spear, which would take him at least a full day. Using the sharpened pole, Odysseus plunges it into the right eye of the T-Rex while it sleeps, just like he did to the Cyclops Polyphemus in the Odyssey. The T-Rex roars and wakes in horrific pain and begins to chase Odysseus, who baits it to the rock wall, smashing them through to get another power moon, destroying the chain chomps he weaves through and smashing the stone walls to let him pass. Odysseus has made it through. New problem. He's being chased by a fucking T-Rex. Odysseus knows he blinded its right eye, which he'll take advantage of by dodging only on that side of the T-Rex when it charges him to increase his odds of survival, but even then it's still a huge risk. Fortunately, he curves down the path to the right, and after baiting the T-Rex to break one more stone wall, he narrowly escapes through a pipe and turns into a 2D image. After a brief existential crisis, Odysseus ascends the wall, now beyond the reach of the T-Rex. He easily breaks the bricks necessary to climb up and back into the 3D world, bounds from the blinded beast below. But now above, a band of bouncy biters are bandily baited to break a boulderous barrier, and Odysseus is free to fight the boss of the kingdom, Madame Brood. She's far too big to choke the life out of. Odysseus is just a man, so instead Odysseus will have to beat her the proper way. Normally you'd win by rage baiting her chain chomp out of her control, forcing her to pull it back, which makes her hit herself with the chain chomp. Now Odysseus can't control the chain chomp with Cappy, but fortunately, Odysseus doesn't need a weapon. He's a warrior of the mind. At the start of the fight, Madame Brood says that she's going to turn Odysseus into snacks for her adorable chain chompykins. A trained pet, you say? Odysseus himself masterfully trained his pet dog Argos as a young king, so he knows exactly how to manipulate the chomp. Hearing that it wants snacks, Odysseus pulls out the frog corpses he took from Top Hat Tower. There were 5 frogs total at Top Hat Tower, so Odysseus will use the frogs to bait the chomp by wiggling treats at it like a dog, then throwing them over its head like a discus when Madame Brood starts pulling it back. The sudden shift will make her hit herself with the chain chomp, so he does this 3 times until she's successfully knocked out, and Odysseus can then bash her unconscious brains in with his stone hand axe. Taking her multi-moon in victory, Odysseus is able to fully repair the nearby ship, conveniently named the Odyssey. With the fuel on board, Odysseus is finally able to set sail full speed ahead with his first ship of the journey, a course charted straight for the Sand Kingdom. In-game art of the ship shows hot teacups inside, implying a heating method which can be used to cook the frogs to refresh Odysseus's hunger. Now you may think 2 leftover frogs isn't enough for him. That's only like 600 calories. And you'd be right, which is why Odysseus used his hand axes to carve apart Madame Brood's large rabbit body for food. Now you may again think that Madame Brood's body would be enough to survive on for a while, but this time you're wrong. Rabbit starvation, also known as acute protein poisoning, is a survival phenomenon whereby eating nothing but lean meat animals, you die from poisoning. This is caused by a buildup of protein metabolic waste compounds like urea, uric acid, ammonia, and creatine, without enough carbohydrates and fats to balance them out. This means Odysseus is far from in the clear, and while he may eat up a little, he must leave the rest of her body behind. Hopefully he finds more stable food in the... Traveling to the Sand Kingdom, Odysseus sees a stone tower in the distance, but won't travel to it just quite yet. Odysseus's only goal is to survive, not to perfect the game. This means we'll only ever try to collect the minimum number of power moons necessary to proceed to the next kingdom, unless more can be easily acquired and used for some other purpose. Odysseus needs fresh food and water to survive, so upon finding a village in the sands, he invokes the divine law of hospitality known to the Greeks as Cassinia to ask the residents of the nearby settlement for food and water, trading the coins he's collected so far from the Cap and Cascade kingdoms as compensation. In exchange for these coins, he's also able to afford a power moon, giving him the first one for the region. And as the little scamp he is, Odysseus notices a little power moon behind the vendors. And so he sneaks in through some loose bars behind the business and he's able to steal a second power moon. Inside one of these buildings, Odysseus finds a lottery that can be rigged by simple pattern recognition, so Odysseus gets his third power moon by outsmarting the game. Emboldened by these easy moons, he climbs the rooftops to grab a fourth moon and then climbs down a nearby pipe to take a fifth moon through solving a simple puzzle. And lastly, interacting with this little wolf guides him to a sixth moon under the sands, at which point the dog that helped him instantly dies of old age, because that's what happens in the Odyssey to his dog, since Homer is a dick. But Odysseus had invoked hospitality, so between all of this moon theft and the killing of a hound, even if accidental, Odysseus's actions had invoked the ire of Artemis, goddess of the moon and hunt. But he doesn't know this is a factor quite yet. Odysseus makes a quick trip to the nearby oasis, mostly for food and water, but it's here where he collects a seventh moon from a bird he hunts by climbing a tree and then pouncing on the bird from above, and then immediately collects an eighth moon from the pile of sand directly below where he landed. Confident he's collected enough moons for the journey ahead, Odysseus heads for the stone tower and begins to ascend its steps. He collects a power moon that's stuck in a rock by baiting a bullet bill, but past this one, this tower requires a lot of double jumping, which immediately bars us from being able to collect many of the moons. However, through simple climbing and the use of sand geysers that can be safely stood on, and the use of 2D wall climbing, which gives him another hidden power moon, Odysseus is able to climb the tower with great difficulty until he reaches the top of the highest tower, with now 11 power moons. In front of him now lies a massive cavern, but by traversing the floating rocks, he's able to slowly make his way down to the sand. As a soldier, Odysseus successfully pillaged the city of Troy without a single casualty. I don't think it's a stretch to say he can mug this man for his sunglasses and then use them to find pieces of another power moon and traverse the invisible stone pathways. Collecting all of the moon shards opens the route to the inverted pyramid, revealing the path of revenge to Antinauser's ship. Also digging through the sand, Odysseus finds a 13th power moon near some luggage. Going inside the inverted tower, we learn that Antinauser is the least of our worries. Just getting through the first room will be the challenge. Unable to possess the bullet bill with Cappy and fly across, he's forced to scan the room, noticing that there's two little lips of stone that run all along the edge of the arena. Using the top as a handhold and the bottom as a foothold, Odysseus is able to shimmy along the edge of the room rather quickly to the other side. Climbing through the tower, he collects a 14th power moon in a 2D section along with many coins. He tricks a bullet bill into breaking some blocks and then once again finds a chasm with a convenient ledge to climb along that ends in an X-pattern wall that would be extremely easy to climb even for an average person. And climbing past this section leads to the top of the tower. Odysseus runs out to the center of the tower summit, determined to confront Antinauser in his ship, but he's too late. Odysseus catches only a fleeting glimpse of Penelope as the tyrannical suitor flies off, leaving the Broodals behind, now missing Topper, who is super dead. Harriet confronts Odysseus for the death of her brother Topper, so he's forced to fight once again. Unfortunately for Harriet, her fight is literally just her throwing bombs at Odysseus, and Odysseus kicking them back at her until she falls over, at which point Odysseus chokes the light from her eyes. Collecting her multi-moon, Odysseus is now up to 18 power moons, plenty to leave this kingdom aboard the Odyssey as the multi-moon flies him back to his ship. However, Odysseus is a curious lad, and as the inverted tower begins to fly into the sky with a radiant rainbow beam, Odysseus can't help but be curious what that's all about. However, again, reaching the inverted tower's light reveals a sinkhole like a sandy Charybdis, which is frankly too much, and so Odysseus backtracks to his ship and takes off for the next island of his Odyssey, the next kingdom. With a choice between the Lake Kingdom and the Wooded Kingdom, Odysseus has to choose. And as the King of Ithaca, which is an island nation, and as an expert sailor, he naturally chooses the Lake Kingdom. Freshly arriving in the Lake Kingdom, Odysseus is forced to get in the water. Now, you may be thinking that the water is dangerous because of Rule 4 of the challenge, but that's specific to the ocean or extremely deep water. The Lake Kingdom's waters aren't oceanic, it's literally called the fucking Lake Kingdom. Don't fight me on this, I have a nut! This means Odysseus is free to embrace the waters with open arms, diving in to do a time trial and unlock his first power moon. Using a flower as a jump pad, normally Mario would possess a zipper with Cappy to unzip the floor and explore this temple, but Odysseus can't do that. Instead, he's just gonna squeeze through these very big gaps in these columns, which Mario can't do because he's fat. Navigating the temple's aquatic tunnels, Odysseus finds yet another power moon, but also finds these kelp monsters, which he is easily able to tear apart for soup stock for his survival needs, incorporating the cheap fish for protein and fatty acids. Now with a stable food source after running out of frogs and that dog that died earlier, yes, he ate the dog in the Sand Kingdom, grow up, sailors don't waste meat. Finally, we'll be fine on food. His survival prospects are finally looking up. Swimming into this open area, he's able to surface for air, but not before getting another power moon from this friendly plesiosaur's back, and another from this cubby wall. Swimming into the water plaza entrance, Odysseus meets the locals, and speaking to this secret lady, he gets a 5th power moon, and she tells him how to get to Antinauser's ship by taking the elevator up to the surface. Swimming up the elevator, he's met with a new challenge. To get to the water plaza terrace, it requires crossing the gap in this bridge, which you'd think he'd simply take the flower jump across, but that'd send him easily 30 to 50 feet into the air. With a drop from that height onto possibly slick stone, he's likely to get injured or even killed. Odysseus is gonna have to think of a solution, and of course, he has just the cunning idea. By harvesting these kombu he's been using for soup stock, then cleaning and drying them up on the terrace, and then twisting their fibrous strands into cordage, he can make a rope over many days. Now, how does he get it up there? Simple. If Odysseus were to make a lasso and then throw it at the metal flower and miss, the rope would risk getting wet and then losing all integrity. Instead, Odysseus will toss his rope from the terrace to the dry island over there, and then from there he can weigh one end of the rope down by tying a cheap to it. Odysseus then throws the heavy end of the rope all the way across to the other side of the bridge, perpendicular to the bridge, and on the other side of the large metal flower from the gap. From there, he can just tread water and swim to the other side, then grab that end of the rope and swim back, which hooks the rope around the flower, using it as an anchor with no risk of missing at all. Holding both sides of the rope, Odysseus can easily climb up, collect his leftover rope, and then use the same flower to jump up to the platform where the dreadful Broodal ship is hovering. Although at this point, the Broodals are just Spewart and Rango, so they're kind of just more like a power couple now that the sibling duo is gone. Rango jumps down and begins to attack Odysseus, which is the first time in this journey where Odysseus actually has to work to survive a fight. Rango wields a bladed hat as his weapon of choice, which he uses in both melee combat and ranged attacks. Recognizing that Rango is a real warrior, Odysseus coils his rope around his arm to use as a makeshift shield and potentially a whip. Dodging attack after attack, Rango chases Odysseus around the arena, jumping at him with his bladed hat. Rango throws the hat, expecting it to return to him, which is when Odysseus strikes. Using his rope, he whips the hat out of the air, partially shredding his rope, but giving him a chance to fight the disarmed Rango. Odysseus grabs what's left of his rope and rushes Rango, wrestling him to the ground and using the rope to choke the life from his eyes. Although his rope is expended, Odysseus is able to collect Rango's bladed hat for a weapon, as well as the multi-moon needed to fuel the Odyssey. After starting a fire and smoking some cheap meat to stock up on food and water for the journey ahead, Odysseus returns to the ship, still no closer to finding Penelope. Stocked up on supplies, Odysseus is forced to travel to the Wooded Kingdom. Finally in a wooded area full of life and resources, Odysseus can get to work. He uses his hand axes to carve spears, and he crafts a bow using the hard woods good for bow carving found throughout the forest, as well as the fibrous plants to string it. Odysseus then crafts arrows from the fallen branches, carving arrowheads out of the many cheap fish bones that he's acquired over time, stabilizing the arrows with the use of the bird feathers left behind by the birds we saw scatter when the ship landed. Suddenly, this adorable rabbit challenges Odysseus to a game of tag with his cute little squeaks, offering a power moon if he catches him. However, Odysseus cannot speak rabbit, so he shoots it in the face with an arrow. Odysseus now has another power moon and some fresh dinner. Traveling through the woods, Odysseus finds a robot that offers him a power moon for only some of the hundreds of coins he's collected so far, and so Odysseus takes the deal. He then encounters a sphinx, which gives him a riddle, asking what Antinauser wants from the kingdom. Odysseus predicts it to be flowers, giving his wedding theme, which allows him to pass. Thinking himself so clever, Odysseus laughs to himself as he passes through the tunnel deeper into the kingdom. But little does he know he's in not just any woods, he's in the woods. Artemis's woods. Remember them? With the wrath of the goddess of the hunt slowly creeping in, we return to Odysseus at the foot of the Iron Road. At the base of this structure, Odysseus realizes just how many power moons he needs to continue on, so he enters a cave in search of one, but finds a Koopa throwing fireballs. Easily dodging these slow projectiles, Odysseus shoots an arrow through the Koopa's eye, killing it instantly and retrieving its power moon. Looking at the base of the Iron Road's vertical ascent, he realizes that attempting to jump from platform to platform would be insane with all the poison laying around, so instead Instead, he climbs to the top using the latticework iron bars, and when they're not available, he's able to free solo the rocky cliff all the way to the top. Reaching the halfway point, Odysseus notices a power moon in the mouth of a large piranha plant. But a piranha plant is a simple creature, and 2 spears thrown from range slay the beast. Odysseus takes its power moon for himself. Now able to see the Broodal ship, Odysseus uses the flower paths to make his way up to the Sky Garden Tower, collecting a power moon from the walnut as he goes. From inside the tower, he's easily able to follow the flower paths and take the hydraulic elevators, collecting another moon as he ascends and shooting down another moon from the sky above the central structure to collect it. Going through the door, Odysseus reaches the top of the tower. As he walks out into the open rooftop, the Broodal ship descends, and on its deck stands Spewart, alone. As the last surviving Broodal seethes with fury and curses Odysseus' name, Odysseus pulls out a familiar bladed hat. He smiles and wears this hat upon his head, openly mocking Spewart with the brutal details of Rango's last moments, goading his lover into reckless action. Enraged by the death of his companions and his gay lover Rango, Spewart jumps from his ship, roaring with rage as he prepares to slay the monster of a man who stands before him. But a monster is what Spewart called him, and so a monster is what he'll get. With the Broodal ship abandoning him, seemingly committing a mutiny to leave Spewart behind out of fear of Odysseus, this battle would determine the fate of the Broodals. Poison covers the arena as Spewart unveils his weapon of choice, shielding his body within the reinforced metal hat from Odysseus' arrows and spears. Odysseus is cornered as the poison stench burns at his nose, but Odysseus has a plan. Using Rango's hat, Odysseus is able to throw the returning weapon with ease, clearing away the poison with each throw until he finds a window to strike at Spewart with his own lover's weapon. Metal clashes, sparks fly as the 2 hats meet. Odysseus plants a spear under the rim of Spewart's shield, pressing his body on it to pry him from his shell. With one decisive motion, the battle is decided as the exposed Broodal's throat is slashed open by the bladed hat. Spewart gargles, choking, desperately attempting to fight back as poison and blood meet, spewing from his open throat wound in equal amounts. Spewart chokes on his own blood, the light choked from his eyes as Odysseus watches on. Rango's poison-covered hat he had used to shield himself now rests atop the body of Spewart, as Odysseus solemnly regards him. A warrior had died a warrior's death, and he understands Spewart's rage, but his ruthlessness is mercy upon the grieving Spewart, for Odysseus knows the longing of being reunited with his own lover, and Spewart now joins his. But Penelope is still out there. And so shouldering his bow, Odysseus moves on from Spewart's corpse. The Broodals are done for. The search for his love continues. But first he needs more power moons. Collecting the multi-moon, Odysseus is returned to his ship. He knows he won't always be as fortunate as he has been within the wooded and lake kingdoms, so he'll stay a while and stock up on arrows, spears, and food and water. While hunting for fish in the stream, he finds another power moon in the flooded pipeway, and while breaking apart rocks to make better arrowheads, Odysseus discovers another power moon. But unfortunately, this is where his luck runs out. Lurking from behind her hunter's blind, Artemis draws her arrow, her aim directed toward an unaware Odysseus. Just before she's about to strike him dead, her sister Athena appears before her, sharing her wisdom in the moment. Athena explains that an alien machine is currently destroying Artemis's sacred flower field in the woods. So rather than slay Odysseus, she coyly asks, "Wouldn't you like to punish him instead, dear sister?" Artemis smiles and agrees, coming up with an idea and appearing before Odysseus to issue him a challenge. She tells him a beast invades her sacred grove, trampling upon the flowers of her hunter's favorite field. But this beast was not ordinary. This was a different beast, one of iron and light, one that flies like an eagle yet roars with the force of a dozen lions. Although she could simply slay the beast herself, she demands Odysseus makes up for the faithful hound that died needlessly under his watch by slaying the beast for her, after which he'll be forgiven. Odysseus knows she expects he'll die in this fight, but accepts these god games knowing that refusal would be death at the hands of an Artemis foul. In a swirling of leaves, Artemis whisks him to her secret flower garden with the same power as her sacred multi-moons, and it's here where he's forced to confront the Iron Beast. As the alien known as Torquedrift whirs to life, it prepares to attack Odysseus. His arrows bounce helplessly off the force field surrounding its armored body, forcing Odysseus to think quickly as Artemis watches on with amusement. Torquedrift fires its laser cannon at Odysseus, who takes cover under the few bricks he can find, but to his surprise, the rebounded blast from this attack knocks over the robot, exposing its glass dome. Cracking the glass with his spear, Odysseus dives through into the machine, flowers whipping everywhere as the machine attempts to blow Odysseus away. Torque Drift uses its sucker to blow Odysseus. It blows and blows. It tries to blow Odysseus so hard Calypso would be jealous, and after sucking and blowing as hard as it can, the machine begins to lift into the air with Odysseus inside it. Odysseus jams his spear deep into Torque Drift's insides. The metal groans and creaks as he thrusts again and again, deflowering the beast with each thrust. But Torque Drift can't blow fast enough, and as they both reach their climax in the sky, Torque Drift is defeated. But now the truth comes crashing down on Odysseus, as Odysseus comes crashing down to Earth. As they crash to the ground, Odysseus is scattered across the woodland floor, horrifically injured in the crash. Satisfied by her revenge, Artemis leaves Odysseus to his bloody, mangled fate. As Odysseus slowly loses consciousness, he dreams of his love Penelope and wonders if he will one day find her in the next life. But then he wakes up and is completely fine because he found that extra life in the Cap Kingdom. Remember that? You remember that? That's plot relevant. Gathering the multi-moon from Torque Drift's corpse, now covered in a white substance from the explosion, Odysseus sprints to his ship to set sail for the next kingdom. Although his bow and spears have been destroyed in the crash, he leaves with only the food and water supplies he's already gathered, not wanting to waste another moment in pursuit of his beautiful Penelope. This near-death experience had reminded him of what he's lost, and so he sets course for the Metro Kingdom, or so he thought. As Odysseus travels through the clouds, he spots something on the horizon. He sees Antinauser's ship on its way toward the Metro Kingdom. Odysseus is by far the more proficient sailor, and so he catches up to the ship and sees the dastardly suitor aboard the top deck. Both ships come to a stop as they land on the solid clouds of the Cloud Kingdom, and the two warriors prepare for battle. Penelope! I'm right here, Penelope! Your husband's here! Antinauser, you made a mistake. What do you even have to show for it? Why so much grief for me? It doesn't even matter anymore. No beast will hurl me down to death against my fate, and fate—
Cut off my fucking monologue. This man is right in a sense. Your husband is right here, and it is no longer you.
You turtle bitch. With both of their heads in the clouds, the time for talk had passed. The fight is on. With powerful boxing gloves in his hat, Antinauser outsizes Odysseus 10-1, and equipped with only a bow and arrow, Odysseus prepares to counter whatever strategy the turtle might have. With everything in his favor, Antinauser immediately throws his weapon directly at Odysseus, instantly disarming himself. And Odysseus won't let this chance go by. Baiting the boxing hat to the iron wall, Odysseus grabs hold of it as it bounces off the gate, stunned, then wears it himself to fight back. Closing the gap with Antinauser, Odysseus rains what feels like 600 strikes upon his head in a blinding blitz, sending Antinauser back to his ship in utter defeat. Odysseus readies an arrow to slay the stunned Antinauser. Finally, the megalomaniacal turtle sits there helplessly as he utters the command,
Fire.
Odysseus is caught in an artillery bombardment, and as he sprints toward his ship, they are both blasted off the edge, careening toward the Earth from the Cloud Kingdom. Falling through the open sky, Odysseus uses his parachute to slow his fall, but as he crashes through the jungle canopy, his parachute is torn to threads, and he comes crashing down on the beaches. Stranded in the Lost Kingdom, the Odyssey is left in disrepair. Odysseus is once again reduced to one objective: survive. Crafting a new bow from the palm trees on the beach, Odysseus is attacked by a bird when he goes into the main land. This stupid bird right here. So Odysseus shoots and kills it. Odysseus needs power moons to repair the ship, but on this island, they'd all be perilous to obtain. The vast majority require the use of ground pound, which up until this point could have been easily substituted for digging since they were on sand or loose dirt. The bulk of this island's power moons are encased in solid stone, which is what makes this island so challenging. Leaping to a large tree, he's able to acquire one on its upper branches in the swamp. Another power moon sits behind these dirt bars, which Odysseus is easily able to squeeze through. Exploring the island's far recesses, he finds one power moon hidden in a staircase, another below a cliff's ledge, one more in a flower bed along the mountainside road, and by scaling a cliffside horizontally, he finds a warp pipe that gives him an easy moon in a 2D puzzle, and another just outside of it that he crosses some platforms to easily obtain. Now, Odysseus still needs 3 more power moons, but his options are getting limited as he cooks up the unemployed bird whose father never loved him's corpse. and get some rest for the night. At the tip of the Forgotten Isles mountain is a timed challenge where Mario would normally wall jump back and forth to climb up the mountain. Odysseus might be able to do this, but he might not have to. Notice the finger and footholds between the stone blocks. With an athlete of Odysseus's level, speed climbing up this height within the time limit is trivial, and at the top he's rewarded with a power moon atop a palm tree, and a second power moon he buys from the local mountaintop shop. The last power moon necessary to escape the island is located in a cave where Captain Toad had become stranded on the isle. Invoking hospitality, as is the custom of the Greeks, Captain Elpenor D. Toad proudly offers Odysseus the last power moon needed in exchange for leaving the island aboard his ship. Returning to the ship and repairing it with the gathered power moons, Odysseus is able to resume his voyage, chasing after Penelope as Captain Toad falls over the railing, unprepared for the ship's sudden departure, and breaks his neck on the rocks below. Not noticing this even happened, Odysseus heads for the Metro Kingdom. The flight was quiet. The marble statues that would remember Odysseus into the future could not sit so still as him in this moment. Still contemplation over the darkness of open ocean, no matter what cruelty is sown to the fields of punishment to reap, the underworld is yet still too kind a place for that bastard to rot. If a single head of hair is touched on... I don't know. I don't know. Antenauser deserves the suffering, but what do his soldiers know? What of his troops? Does a Goomba assume the Koopa Troopa's troops abuse, or does he pluck and bruise and groom the Galoomba's Goombrat to his loom? There's the rub. Focus. You're closer. She's just out of reach, but that only means I'm closer. A dark storm rages over the Metro Kingdom, a foul wind blasting heavy rains that fall in sheets like a dance over the city. Antenauser flies his ship through the conjured malevolent storm, but Odysseus spies another beast of metal. This one writhes and skitters up the tallest tower, an iron serpent slithering in the garden of grass and steel. Advertisements dominate the city, claiming all must celebrate the marriage of Penelope and Antenauser. As the nearby mayor laments her loss of the city's control, Odysseus wraps his bow around a nearby hanging wire, which he insulates with his rubber strips from his shoes and zip lines down to the city outskirts below. The city streets are desolate and overrun with machines of iron too tough for him to beat, but taking shelter in a Crazy Cap department store, he's able to purchase his first power moon of the kingdom. While exploring the city under the cover of the dark storm, Odysseus finds an iron horse of unfamiliar make nearby. But as a clever man and big fan of horses, Odysseus is able to get this iron horse to come to life, taking off down the city streets, racing past the hostile machines. Riding atop the iron girders, he grabs another moon as he skids past the enemies. Racing to the base of the skyscraper, Odysseus parks his iron horse in a nearby alleyway, climbing scaffolding in the pouring rain to get to a rooftop where some men stare up at Antenauser's ship. Climbing up and grabbing a third power moon from the shaking iron crossbeam, Odysseus leaps across to the main skyscraper, landing on its outer balcony. Entering the City Hall skyscraper, he's met with the most bizarre infrastructure for a government building he's ever seen. Ascending the elevators and the scaffolding, shooting Goombas through the head with his bow, he reaches a striped pole that he's able to climb to reach a chest with a fourth power moon in it, before he finally reaches a large doorway that takes him to the roof's outer rim. And this is where the real challenge is. Normally, Mario would possess the electrical wire to zip to the top of the tower, but Odysseus is incapable, and because it's both rain-slicked and angled up, he can't use it as a zipline or tightrope walk like he has before at these moments. Although climbing the outside of the skyscraper without equipment is possible, through the heavy rain, any grip he would have would be perilously weak and slippery. However, notice this railing around one edge of the roof's highest balcony? Let's call this Plan A. Create a grappling hook with a rope to climb up, but what's Plan B? Back with the goons on the rooftop before the third power moon, Odysseus was on a rooftop helipad, and if he finds that helicopter, he has another possible option to ascend. Odysseus begins to climb down. Who goes there? Who goes there? Aren't you supposed to be the clever one? You figure it out. I figured out you're watching me, so isn't that clever enough? I'm talking to you right now. Obviously, but now you've shown yourself, so I get what I wanted. Hermes. Hasn't anyone ever told you? Tricks aren't very nice, you know. I ought to spank you, great-grandson. What are you even doing here? Always have been. What? Oh, Odie, who do you think gave you that little push, that extra lift, so all those dreadful drops didn't kill you? Wait. Don't tell me you really thought that glorified bedsheet let you survive all those falls. I was no, Odysseus, your little legendary journey has been enlightening to watch. Tell me, how do you propose to get past the challenge this time, baby Odie? Will you take the iron horse of yours down below and ride it up the side of the tower, all heroic-like, to slay the iron centipede at the center of the storm? Just picture it. Hermes' baby Odie, the horse and the infant versus the Thunderbringer. I'm sure fans watching at home would debate which is stronger for frankly far too long. After all, these things are subjective, and people's opinions can change, but the ratings would be. Thank you. Oh, right, yes. Well, what if you didn't have to do all that? Wouldn't you like to skip all that jazz and just get to the interesting part? Yeah, but what did you have in mind? Simple, darling. Turn around. Rocketing down the side of the tower, the Iron Serpent roars as it ambushes Odysseus, plagued by floating and cartoonish illusions of Odysseus mocking it to a state of rage. Unprepared for the assault, Odysseus raises his arms as the beast rams into him, sending him plummeting toward the streets below. As Odysseus plummets toward the ground, he braces for impact as a sudden burst of wind slows him. Right before Odysseus hits the ground, Hermes apparates from thin air, catching and swooping Odysseus into his arms as he hovers over the ground. Daddy dearest doesn't like someone stepping on his whole lightning and thunder territory, so he asked me to send a message to the beast. I trust you can do this for me, Odysseus. Wonderful! Letting go of Odysseus, dropping him 3 feet to the ground. Fuck! Hermes vanishes as his voice echoes on the wind. This is my goodbye for now. Until next time, Odie. Odysseus looks around in a desperate scramble as the Mecha Wiggler crawls down the skyscraper after him. Scanning the battlefield, he spots a single unoccupied tank, much like the other tanks he had to ride past to get to the tower. On the side of the tank, in cartoonish letters, it reads, Odie's Special Horse. Swallowing his pride for the first time in his life, Odysseus dives into the tank and prepares for battle. As the Mecha Wiggler charges up its lightning, Odysseus scrambles for the controls, turning the gun and firing upon the beast. Thanks to Hermes' gift, defeating the beast is made easy, and as it falls apart, destroyed, its multi-moon lands in the center of the square. Approaching it, Odysseus is taken back to his ship, and with the false Thunderbringer destroyed, its storm dissipates, revealing a sunny sky over the Metro Kingdom. Odysseus runs to a railing and checks the skies overhead, seeing that Antinauser's ship had escaped during the fight. But Odysseus would need 13 more power moons to give chase, so with clear skies overhead, he makes his way to the zipline, grabbing a moon from beneath its girder and ziplining down to the now bustling city. With his masterful athleticism and heart of iron, the king of Ithaca and fearsome warrior of the Trojan War easily plays some jump rope with some businesswomen, securing himself 2 power moons and then making his way to a nearby cafe to eat and drink up for the adventure ahead and the 10 remaining power moons. Remembering the mayor of the city from when he arrived and expecting her to be grateful, Odysseus makes his way to City Hall with hopes of reward. Offering her gratitude indeed, Mayor Pauline invites him to rest and take in great reward and banquet at an upcoming festival held in his honor. Odysseus gratefully accepts and offers to make himself useful for her showing him proper hospitality. In return, she asks him to find musicians for the festival so it can begin as soon as possible, and so he accepts. Turning his head just slightly to the right, he spots a drummer and invites him to the festival, gaining a moon in return. Once again turning his head slightly to the right and realizing Pauline must have terrible eyesight, Odysseus spies a bassist on a nearby rooftop. But to get there, he'd need to tightrope walk across another taut wire. Now, in a city, Odysseus realizes this is an opportunity to clean his clothes and acquire actual equipment. So he buys rubber-insulated boots and gloves from the Crazy Cap shop for future wire traversal. Making his way across the wire with his fresh boots, he recruits the bassist for another moon and finds yet another moon in the nearby scrapped robot. Suddenly remembering the guitarist from the park with his jump rope friends, he returns to recruit the man and notices that while he's there, the jump rope women are gone, but also that a small crowd is gathered near the railing at the city's edge. Unsure what that's all about, he talks to the guitarist and from him acquires another power moon and is almost done recruiting musicians. Returning to City Hall to update the mayor on his progress, he notices music from a distance. On a nearby rooftop, a saxophonist debates ending it all, playing one final melody from a rooftop ledge, calling out to the musician to choose life and inviting him to the festival to give him a purpose. The clouds part and a single ray of warm sunlight envelops the saxophonist as he lets out a single tear and makes his way down to join the band. Wow, you're so good at this, Odysseus. You should consider running for office. You know, it's funny you should say Pauline asks Odysseus for one final favor. The city's underground power station is giving poor readings, and Odysseus Odysseus must travel underground to fix it so his ship and the festival can be powered enough to fly away. After accepting, Pauline escorts him down to the power station where he shoots dead the piranha plants infesting the station with his bow and collects the moon in the room. As the station whirs to life, Odysseus notices hundreds of power moons surging through the station and asks Pauline if she can spare a few for his ship once the festival comes to a close. Pauline smiles warmly and we see Odysseus in a place of honor, the king of Ithaca enjoying banquets not seen since the likes of Circe's island. But he has little time to enjoy himself, for the Odyssey awaits him to sail off into the sunset in search of Penelope. And so with Pauline's multi-moon, Odysseus loads up on food, water, and heavy clothing in town and climbs aboard his ship, charging full speed ahead to the Snow Kingdom. Not used to ever experiencing snow, he can't find any gear like ice picks in town due to the lack of demand in the Metro Kingdom. Thinking this not much of an issue, he charges forward, Unrelenting cold, the kind of cold that strips away any spark inside a living thing, blasts the endless wastes. With a harsh shudder, the creaking Odyssey's doors open, and Odysseus pushes forward into the blizzard. All further than 10 feet away might as well not exist, a wall of white blinding him to what could lie ahead. But Odysseus continues along this path, with faith in himself to see Penelope again. It's then that a lone light shines through the vicious storm. A pillar of light like an aurora borealis calls to Odysseus like a siren's song, and so sliding down the icy path, he finds his way to a pit that drops into a massive snowbank. As Odysseus drops in and lands in soft snow, a warm light and the sight of seal folk are a warm welcome amidst the tundra. In Shiveria town, Odysseus asks around to find what's become of Antinauser's ship, learning of the grand wedding cake the beast had stolen, but also that the ship was yet to leave as it blocked the town's sled racing course. But before Antinauser, Odysseus' first priority would be survival. He has to secure enough power moons to make the next leg of the journey, should his foe escape like in the kingdoms thus far. Odysseus spies a power moon within reach of a couple stacked boxes and collects it, then gathers a couple power moons from the surrounding snow and hidden chests throughout the town. In the meantime, Odysseus gathers leads on nearby landscape and its hidden power moons. The locals reveal that his path is blocked unless he braves the many caverns connected to the town to collect their power moons and unlock the barriers at the center of town placed by Antinauser. Easily enough, in Windchill Cavern, he would easily cross the paths, leaping onto a great beast of wind and riding it across to the other side of the cavern to the power moon as it desperately tries to shake him off. In Icicle Cavern, Odysseus is effortlessly able to dispatch the Goombas with his arrows, piling up their corpses to unlock a secret power moon in the icy cliffside. With no need for a double jump, this cavern is easily traversed for its power moon. In the Hollow Crevasse, Odysseus has no trouble avoiding its slow beasts to collect the power moon fragments, climbing along a cliffside for a moon in a chest and unlocking the cavern's mechanism. In the final cavern known as Snowy Mountain, Odysseus pulls corks from the ground to release gales of wind like the bag gifted to him by Aeolus, using those to deftly ascend the mountain to the summit, where a single Goomba stands in the way due to a shortage in warriors of Antinauser's army. Collecting the final power moon, Shiveria Town's mechanism unlocks, allowing Odysseus passage to the Grand Prix track to check for anything left in Antinauser's tracks. Upon arriving at the Snowline Circuit, Odysseus learns that Antinauser had already left in the direction of the Luncheon Kingdom, and also that a race with a multi-moon as the grand prize is being held in celebration of Antinauser leaving. This multi-moon would be exactly what he needs to continue the chase. However, he also learns that the race can't start until one more racer joins, and unfortunately for him, he learns that the Shiverians are openly racist. Searching nearby, he finds a single lonely Shiverian quaking at the thought of the race, afraid he'll lose against the more serious racers. Odysseus attempts to encourage the Shiverian as best he can, filling his head with promises of treasure and glory, but nothing breaks through the man's fear. Odysseus walks away, musing to himself a plan to join the race himself and find buckthorn berries growing in the frozen wastes above, to lace the other racers' cocoa so they violently shit themselves during the race, ensuring his victory. Amused by the idea, he looks up to see Athena smirking at the warrior of the mind's clever trick, but she offers him a much more interesting solution. Transforming him into a Shiverian himself, she gives him a satchel of buckthorn berries and tells him not to rely on the meager racer he'd been trying to convince. He'd have a much greater chance to win on his own. Eager and up to the challenge, Odysseus drugs the fellow racers with the laxative berries native to the area and arrives at the race. The horns blare as the race begins, but other racers quickly find themselves challenged, projectile shit flying everywhere as they slip on their own waste, many falling in the surrounding ocean, bouncing through the arena like a Greek man has never bounced before, and that is impressive considering how many orgies the Greeks had with no women present. Odysseus bounces and bounces and bounces, crossing the finish line in first. Athena's second lifeline proved to be just what he needed as Odysseus transforms back into himself and is given a multi-moon, letting him leave the kingdom. Arriving back aboard the Odyssey, Odysseus turns back toward the blizzard and utters a quiet prayer lost on the wind. He says, Thank you, old friend. And then walks back to the ship's controls. As the door shuts behind him, he takes off for the Luncheon Kingdom, but is unable to make it there with the fuel provided, so he makes the decision to stop by the Seaside Kingdom for fuel. Landing in the Seaside Kingdom, Odysseus is struck with joy, paired with a profound sadness. You see, this beautiful coastal isle reminded him of his own home in Ithaca, and the many snailfolk couples that surrounded him, lost amongst love and paradise, deeply reminded him of the best time spent with his wife. In his heart, he trusts that his son Toadlemachus rules fairly in his and his mother's absence, and vows to return home as soon as possible. Climbing a rock spire to get a better view of the land, Odysseus finds a power moon up top and clearly sees a strange cephalopod creature drinking from a giant royal goblet. Collecting the power moon releases a button, which our curious hero, of course, pushes. This releases a cork that strikes the foul octopus, angering it greatly. Frankly unimpressed by its gluttony and inability to defend itself, Odysseus ignores this and scavenges the isle for power moons, collecting many from its surrounding waters, cliffsides, and shooting this Goomba in the face for hers as he hikes up a ramp to find yet another power moon, unsealing another cork. Taking the power moon and firing this cork missile at the monstrous creature, its anger only grows, but not yet enough to pry it from its gluttonous nature. Realizing he's yet again on a beach with kelp creatures, Odysseus harvests their body to create rope and loads plenty aboard the Odyssey for future needs. And while harvesting these creatures, he finds a cave that leads to a hidden power moon. Smart enough to understand most great foes he's felled have dropped a multi-moon upon defeat, Odysseus looks to the beast of gluttony atop its chalice as a means to its end. Spying that there's a remaining cork nearby the lighthouse, Odysseus swims through an underwater tunnel, collecting another power moon and desperately swimming for his life as the 6 great heads of Scylla burst from the walls in an attempt to kill and eat him. But he's been through this before, so finding many cheap-cheeps with him in the tunnel, he collects them and throws them to the heads to feed the beast and occupy its mouths long enough for him to reach the other side. Traveling up the warp pipe, he collects the power moon that releases the cork from the fountain, even further enraging the beast, who now throbs at the sight of Odysseus, much like most men. From atop the lighthouse, he sees the final fountain, and so with a running start, Odysseus dives for the crystal waters below, and after a short swim, he reaches the distant island and finds a hot spring far too boiling to enter, and so he concocts a plan. Killing a nearby snail person, he takes their shell and wraps it securely with a rope. Tearing apart the books in the Odyssey, Odysseus wraps the rope with a thick layer of paper. He then skins the Goombas he's killed on the beach to use their hides as extra insulation against heat and water. Returning to the hot springs, Odysseus uses the heat and water-resistant rope and its snail shell bucket to trawl the spring for its power moon. Odysseus realizes that it must be in these waters as it's nowhere else nearby, and after feeling the resistance of a floating object in his search, Odysseus pulls up the final power moon, releasing the button to fire the final cork at the gluttonous beast. Launching the cork, it slams into its target, causing the throbbing creature to engorge and swell with unrelenting rage as it falls from its throne, barely clinging to consciousness only through its hatred of Odysseus. As the great beast swims toward Odysseus, he prepares for the mighty battle ahead, firing arrows at the monster. Unfortunately for the beast, this pops its thin membrane of a head, exploding it to death. Gathering its predictably dropped multi-moon, Odysseus gathers more supplies of smoke cheap and fishbone arrows before setting sail for the Luncheon Kingdom in pursuit of Antinauzer. As the Odyssey descends toward the kingdom of boiling food, Odysseus spies a glint from the rising cliffs. The Broodal ship appears to have crashed into the landscape. Odysseus wonders if maybe the infighting after the mutiny he witnessed caused them to crash this far from the wooded kingdom, and wonders if maybe they have a secret to beating Antinauzer aboard. Landing his ship, he sets out for the crash site and keeps an eye out for any power moons to fuel his search, knowing he needs a great many to travel to the next destination. While beginning to ascend the mountain, Odysseus spots a very shootable Goomba with a power moon. After doing a little rolly on a corn log, which is coincidentally what I call going to the bathroom, he takes the Goomba's moon for himself and continues up, finding a simple power moon platform at the base of the mountain road. Following the southern road, Odysseus collects the power moon atop a pile of salt he spotted while landing the ship, and then collects another in a shadowed recess on the return trip. Before trying to cross the bridge to the mountain path, Odysseus spots a doorway below that likely leads to many power moons, and entering the chamber of magma, he'd be proven right. Navigating the floating platforms, he collects 2 more power moons before warp piping back up to the entrance and beginning to ascend the mountain. Walking into Peranza Plaza, he's delightfully surprised to find people in this molten kingdom. As the citizens beg for his help with slaying a bird that's taken their precious soup, Odysseus finds more interest in a nearby gambling house that offers another moon for a challenge. Walking inside, he aces the slot machine's challenge with a single arrow through 5 moons, and helping out the locals with a large stew, he collects another power moon, and yet finds another in a nearby crater crate outside the local Crazy Cap, only after he purchased a moon from their store. As he attempts to move on and climb the mountain in search of the Broodals' crash site, Odysseus finds a new problem. A magma field blocks his path, and because the rock structure of the mountain is perfectly smooth, there's no simple way to climb around. Odysseus assesses the cliffside, judging distances to see if he could leap to the nearest rougher rock wall when
don't jump, you have so much to live for.
Odysseus turns around to see a magnificent sight.
Careful now, don't slip. One wrong move and you're done for.
This golden gleaming god shines in beauty almost as bright as the sun that he pulls across the sky. Odysseus turns to scan the distant cliffside, rapidly weighing the risk. You don't happen to be here on behalf of your sister, do you?
No, I heard about her little challenge though. Hilarious, no. I'm actually here for you.
Listen, let's just be reasonable, okay? I'm just looking for my wife.
Yes, you are.
And I'm here to help.
Oh, what?
I thought you were trying to kill me. I was sure you were going to kill me. Your sister seemed to hate me.
I'm actually here first. I'll stop. I'm here to reward you, actually.
What for?
For that lonesome musician you saved way back in New Donk City. Why else? I'd always enjoyed that man's trumpet, but I was sad to see him go, but so delighted to see him stay, thanks to you. Now I see you're in need of a little favor yourself, so
here. Apollo tosses a bottle to Odysseus, and inside is a sloshing orange liquid light.
What's this? Drink it and find out.
Odysseus tentatively pops open the glass stopper and downs the liquid, a powerful warmth burning its way down his throat like the strongest wine known to man. He coughs and speaks out.
What? Like I said. Find out.
In a blinding blitz, Apollo bursts forward and pushes Odysseus off the ledge. Plummeting toward the magma pool, Odysseus shouts instinctively before harmlessly splashing into the liquid as though it were water. Looking up to the ledge, Apollo stands at its edge and shouts,
"That potion can resist the heat of the sun, but it doesn't last too long for mortals. I'd suggest swimming fast unless you enjoy suffering," which, knowing you, maybe you
Not
do.
wasting another moment, Odysseus swims forward to the cliffside to begin climbing up. His fingers, dripping with molten material, slowly push into the rock with heat as he climbs the side of the hardened cheese rock. Reaching the top, a frying pan goes sailing past his head as a Koopa throws its weapon at him. Scrambling for cover, Odysseus pulls free his bow, realizing now that his equipment and clothing have been burned away by the molten material, leaving him partially naked and without a weapon. He rushes the Koopa, choking the light from its eyes with his bare hands to take its weapon for himself. And with the pop of its vertebrae, Odysseus has acquired a frying pan, his only weapon. Surprised at how strong this pan is, he notices a power moon encased in glass by some cheese stone that breaks easily under the weight of his pan, clearing a path to the button. The glass shatters as the moon is released, revealing a path to the summit of the mountain. With his trusty frying pan, he follows the path forward toward the summit, cracking apart stone until he finds a salt-encrusted massive boulder that crumbles under the weight of his pan, revealing a massive cut of meat. Grabbing hold of it as he shakes and wobbles his meat, he plays with his meat enough to catch the attention of the bird at the top of the mountain. As the colossal bird grabs a hold of the meaty slab, Odysseus clings to its pork belly to hide from its view as he's flown to the soup pot atop the summit. Dropping in, he can feel the heat of the boiling caldera starting to affect him as the potion already begins to wear off. Needing to act quickly, he swims and climbs atop the floating food and scrambles to the multi-moon at the summit. This enrages the cockatiel, who thrashes its wings, creating a gale force wind that disturbs the volcano, erupting with a great blast. Odysseus dives into the boiling soup to stay within the pot, hiding beyond the sight of the bird. As the beast begins to calm down, Odysseus springs from the stalk to grapple onto the bird. The bird shakes and flies, spewing magma from its beak with great fury. With his pot in hand, Odysseus strikes the bird again and again as he climbs, eventually reaching the bird's head. Odysseus strikes again and again, bending the pan as he caves the bird's skull in. Dazed and wounded, the bird begins to lilt and fumble, falling into the pot and boiling alive with a sickening cry, and the delicious scent of fried chicken. The cauldron splashes and bubbles as it begins to overflow before bursting violently, sending Odysseus splashing into the magma below. To his horror, he begins to feel a rapidly increasing heat. He scrambles out of the magma pool before the potion can fully wear off, letting go of his bent and rended pan as it sinks into the magma below. Odysseus' skin begins to burn as he climbs up the stone and rubs himself off, wicking away the magma from his body before any damage is done to him. Scanning the area to see where he's landed, he's astounded to find himself at the foot of the Broodals' crash site. He tentatively makes his way through the broken hole, greeted by the stench of rotting Koopa flesh. With the remnants of this mutinous crew now dead, Odysseus makes his way toward the navigator's table. He reads their flight plans and finds notes about their intended flight path over the ruined kingdom toward Antinauser's very own kingdom itself. Now sure where to go, Odysseus leaves the wreckage with a direction in mind to finally end this once and for all. Finding the multi-moon dropped by the colossal bird, Odysseus returns to his ship, clothes himself, and charts a course for Antinauser's kingdom. The storm rings silent in the ears of Odysseus as he flies quietly through the wrath-choked clouds, his mind occupied by noises greater than the thunder around him. No sight of Penelope for many kingdoms. Odysseus fears for her safety. He longs for the embrace of his wife, and his blood boils at the thought of Antinauser's rough claws gripping her delicate form. When suddenly the ship rocks and creaks, metal rending as the ship feels the glancing impact of something heavy. Odysseus rushes to a porthole as he sees a familiar ship, but more importantly, a colossal beast of scale darker than the dread of isolation felt in Nyx's darkest night. Two burning eyes emerge as the draconic beast opens its mouth, revealing row after row of teeth, each a Cassiphos like the blade he trained with at home. Its eyes burn almost as brightly as the energy charging in its mouth. Antinauser laughs as the dragon lets loose a blast, disabling the ship instantaneously. Plummeting to the earth, Odysseus floats in free fall within the ship's chambers. Rocked by the blast, his vision swims into focus as an echoing laugh in the back of his mind rouses him to consciousness. But he needs to act quick. Odysseus grabs the nearest wall and propels himself toward the door, and wrenching it open, he enters free fall as the ship plummets toward the ground. Below him, we see a roiling lavender ocean. No, clouds. But a field of rocks jut out at odd angles like an ocean's cliffside, but again, no, those are towers. Crumbling black towers tells Odysseus that he's over the ruined kingdom, and as a cloud is broken up by yet another black tower, Odysseus sees a tower directly below him and opens his mouth to cry for Athena's guidance. I can't help but wonder if you like falling. Do you think this is what Hector's infant son felt when you tossed him off that balcony? Hermes, this isn't the time for jokes. Will you help me? Rule number 7. Hermes is a wild card and is always watching his darling great-grandson Odie with playful interest. What does that even mean? Who are you talking to? Oh, don't worry about it. I've got you. Whisking Odysseus away from the ship as it crashes violently atop a dark tower, Hermes carries him to a nearby standing, yet still ruined tower. What about the ship? Odysseus asks as he's placed at the center of an open chamber atop the tallest tower. You're welcome, says Hermes. My, not even a thank you, Hermes. You've always been my favorite, Hermes. You're right, Hermes. Thank you. Oh, don't thank me, friend. You very well may die. Good luck. The tower rocks and shakes under a violent earthquake as the dragon's form looms out from under the tower. With a hearty laugh and the sound of popping popcorn, Hermes' visage fades, leaving Odysseus behind to face the most horrific beast yet. The black dragon roars as its wings keep it level with the tower, and Odysseus is left abandoned, and more importantly, unarmed. Violet lightning crackles in the dragon's mouth as it releases its powerful breath attack toward the battlefield. Odysseus dodges deftly, but he can't do this forever. And as he scans the battlefield for anything he could use to fight back, he spots something. The crown of the dragon is bolted to its head, but beneath it is a gap in its armored scales, which sits defenseless. Much like an infant child, this dragon has a weakness at the soft spot of its skull, and if there's one thing Odysseus knows best, it's how to kill an infant. As the dragon slams down its head, sending waves of lightning, Odysseus leaps over and sprints for the dragon, climbing atop it and prying free the metal stakes in the dragon's skull. With one great piercing slam, Odysseus drives the stake into the soft spot of the armored beast. The dragon attempts to resist, but as blood bursts from the center of its skull, it relaxes, lobotomized by Odysseus, who stands shaking atop the dragon, catching his breath. With a twinkle behind him, he notices a multi-moon, and in a flash of lightning, he sees his own reflection in the polished bronze of the crown atop the dragon's head. This reflection seems unfamiliar to him, and yet all too familiar. As it fades, he grabs the moon and is transported back to his ship. As the power moon repairs the ship's damage, he walks to a nearby metal stake embedded in the ground and pries it free. Staring at it on the ship as his only remaining weapon, Odysseus sets off for Antinauser's kingdom in silence, unable to face the version of him that has fully resurfaced. He longs to hold Penelope. He misses his son Telemachus, and with this final journey, he knows it's not long before he sees them both. Soaring through the chromatic clouds of the kingdom high in the sky, Odysseus' ship lands at the coordinates he found in the Broodals' crashed ship, just outside the main gate of Antinauser's fortress. Two crumbling statues barely remain standing, but as Odysseus approaches, they finally crumble under the weight of the Broodals' deaths, and a power moon stands between them. Odysseus collects it, and the massive bridge extends to a now opening gate. A brutal challenge stands before him, as he must scale this colossal castle quickly if he wants to save Penelope, and also Tiara, I guess. Running into the courtyard, Odysseus sees two armored birds with beaks sharper than steel and much lighter than his large metal spike. He holds the spike like a battering ram and charges into the side of one of the birds, spearing it through the heart. As the other bird flies in to impale him in return, he catches the beak, slicing his hand as he desperately holds it closed. Grappling onto this bird, he shouts as he pulls its body into the sharp beak of the first bird, stabbing it through its lungs. The second bird sputters, blood oozing from its beak while the first bird twitches. Odysseus continues to hold them down until they stop moving. And as they remain still in death, Odysseus has won. Carving the birds, he takes the sharp beaks in hand and begins to climb the outer walls of the castle as though they were climbing picks. Running past bombs and small enemies, he ignores all but his mission, climbing until he reaches the base of the keep. Atop the castle, Antinouser laughs as Penelope calls out for Odysseus. He proudly claims his plan to hold the wedding ceremony on the moon. Leaving Odysseus behind at the base, he can do nothing but watch as the ship flies further into the sky. Helpless, absolutely helpless to chase them to the moon, Odysseus opens his mouth to call out, but she knows his plea before he speaks it.
You only keep your friends close when you need something, don't you? So is that it, boy? Need my help?
Odysseus pleads to his mentor to lend him aid one final time. He needs the power to reach the Moon Kingdom. Athena agrees to help, but this would be the final time, the last of his lifelines. What happens next is purely up to him. As Athena begins to vanish on the wind, the Odyssey rattles and shakes, its balloon growing and turning gold as it's empowered to reach the Moon Kingdom. Grateful to his oldest friend, Odysseus climbs aboard and chases after Penelope. Wedding bells echo through the night as Odysseus looks out over the horizon of Honeyloon Ridge to see a planet above him he's far left behind. He's the furthest he's ever been from Ithaca, but with Penelope so close at hand, he knows he'll be back soon. Walking out onto the moon's surface, he finds it difficult but manageable to breathe in the apparent atmosphere. Thanks to Athena's coordinates, Odysseus lands just outside the wedding's cathedral, and so with his twin beak swords in hand, Odysseus walks through the doors to the wedding hall. Antinouser stands at the altar with Penelope, desperately trying to convince her to fall for him. But as Odysseus bursts in, she lights up with delight.
Oh, Penelope, would you fall in love with me again? It's your wishes. Who goes there?
My name is Nobody, and you've...
My guy, your name's Odysseus, like clearly Penelope just said that like 30 times.
It was worth a shot. Odysseus moves toward the false suitor, determined to end it, but this plays into Antinouser's hands. The beast grins, giving pause to Odysseus, who stops. Suddenly, Odysseus kneels, and then bows his head. A final offer, Antinouser. I would do anything for my wife. I offer Ithaca. I offer my home for you and your kingdom. A small price to pay. But his words are hollow. He speaks with a bowed head that scans the floor, finding the seam he was looking for. The beast had laid a trap, but now he sees it. Antinouser laughs at the pitiful display and begins lumbering toward the kneeling king. As he does so, Penelope backs away, but is grabbed by the beast. As he looms overhead, Odysseus sheaths one sword and plants the other in the floor in front of him, an apparent gesture of surrender. Still laughing, Antinouser kicks Odysseus, sending him flying across the room. Coughing blood, injured, Odysseus scrambles under a table. Antinouser laughs even deeper than before as he charges the table and picks it up, revealing Nobody. Odysseus is gone. Antinouser turns to the entrance, and as he does so, Odysseus leaps from the bottom of the table. He'd clung to the underside, pinning himself to it with his sword, and so as he withdraws the blade, he leaps to Antinouser and pierces an eye. A bellowing roar of pain is heard as Antinouser drops the princess and swats Odysseus away, and although this injures him, it plays right into Odysseus's hand. He sprints for the back of the church. Furious, Antinouser stomps to release his trap door, but it doesn't open. Wedged in the seam of the trap door is the sword Odysseus planted, not pledged to surrender, instead wedged in the seam to ruin his trap. Odysseus runs right over the trap door to the back of the cathedral, grabbing tablecloths as he rips free the sparkling water and stew, which spill out over the floor. Antinouser charges him, but in his partially blinded state, slips on the slick field Odysseus created. Penelope, now! Odysseus shouts, but his wife was far ahead of her husband. A plan was hatched the moment they first locked eyes in this church, and although their roles had been forcibly flipped, she knew what comes next. With his raging eye on Odysseus as the beastly turtle desperately attempts to get off his back, Penelope grabs the sword from the seam and rips it free, releasing the trap door. Antinouser plummets into the darkness below, finally defeated, and Odysseus and Penelope reunite, sharing a passionate embrace. Hey, where's my brother? Is he, like, in the back or, like, in the ship? Oh, right. He's dead. Thank you so much for watching. This video took me months to make, so please like the video and hype it if you can. Hyping is how small creators like me get noticed, and maybe subscribe and watch my other stuff if you like this one. It's all about as unhinged and fun as this, so I promise you'll like it. I stream basically every week on Twitch, where I hold special events and do crazy and stupid shit. It's awesome. Seriously, it's so fucking fun. You're missing out if you're not there. I'd love getting to know my community, so come by. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're having a great day, and if you're not, I hope it gets better. It always does eventually. Bye!